Welcome everyone to the next episode of What's Your Mess? Mental, Emotional, Social Status of Life. I am your host, Tracey D. Armstrong, and we are here again with another special guest who's going to share their experiences that have shaped their lives and let us in on some of those moments that have really made an impact. So I'm going to be quiet and get out of the way and let him introduce himself. Go ahead.
Hey Tracy. So I'm W.T. Hamilton. I'm an award-winning author, a mindset coach, and an entrepreneur, and basically been through some stuff, learned some stuff, and able to overcome some of these struggles to really achieve my personal impossibles, I call them.
Hey, awesome. You're an award winning author and mindset coach. All of those things. That is great to hear. But I know that that hasn't always been your status of life. So, can
Yeah,
you let the audience know a little bit about some of the messes or a particular mess that you've gone through and you've overcome?
yeah. I'm going to tell you about a particular mess that really shaped my direction and changed the direction of my whole life, basically. So I was a big fish in a small pond. There was a production manager at a small, you know, kind of a mid-sized company, and I had like 60 or 70 employees, and I was in charge of all the production in that company, and I had a high status. So I would go to all the executive meetings. We had the weekly meetings, planning. We would even do the meetings for where the company is going. So everything was great. Loved my job. I had gone through a divorce. I connected to a new lady, and we had some kids, and all my kids lived with me. So we have 4 kids. Bought a house. Everything was going great, and then the stock market crashed in 2009. And even though I'm in Canada and that stock market crash was in the US, it affected what we do because a lot of our customers were, the majority of our customers were American, but also the banks. The banks started getting panicky. And so they called in the loan for the company I was at, which automatically put it into receivership. What happened there was I started to realize that I'm not in control of my financial future. I'm not in control of, my success in life. It was all hinged on what other people are doing, the decisions that they make, and how they're navigating things. And also my status, who I was. When I would meet people, I would give them my resume. Hey, I'm a production manager at this company. I do this and I do that. I'd roll out this resume. That's who I was. So all of a sudden, my identity was gone. I didn't know who I was anymore. And because how I had started in that company, I had worked my way up through, just being a worker and then becoming a lead hand, a supervisor, and then becoming this big manager. So I didn't have all the education, the paperwork behind it. So I was anywhere else. So I found myself in a situation where I didn't know what I was going to do. I was I was in a situation I'd never been in before, where I didn't know where the money was going to come from next. I didn't even know what my status was going to be. I didn't know how I was going to provide for my family and navigate through this kind of dark time where I was seeing all kinds of companies closing down. So it wasn't like there was tons of jobs that you could go and snag. Companies were closing down. Things were just bad. They were really bad. And that's where I found myself. So I was in that situation and figuring out, what do I do next?
Well, with all of that being said, because I remember those times, I remember when the stock market crashed and all of
Mhm.
the employment and things like that. And like you said, depending on someone else and your income, how did that affect you mentally when all of those things took place?
So because of the way I grew up, I was born in England, but my dad's Jamaican, and then we came to Canada. So basically, we were immigrants. But I came here when I was 4, so I really grew up here. But we grew with like this scarcity mindset of, you always got to keep some money aside in case things go bad. So I was keeping money aside in case things went bad, and you're always like looking for, okay, when is something going to go bad? And it was almost like you're focusing on it, so you're attracting it. And so then when it happened, I had the money, so I felt okay. I have a little bit of security. I can navigate for a couple of months on the savings, and then I'm going to be in some trouble. But what it was is it led me to learn about the law of attraction, and start, because I started to say to myself, like, how do I turn the tables? How do I gain control of my financial future, gain control of what I want to do, and not have it tied to somebody else and their decisions that they make. And so that was the first step, was to figure out how to do that. And part of what I learned was, like, I don't have to worry about things I can control, and the things that I can't control, worrying has no effect on. So I really have nothing to worry about. What I have to do is start looking at what skills, what attitudes, what mindset can I apply to change the outcome, and to really start to manifest the things that I want to manifest in life.
Right. Now, I know you also said that you had all the kids living with you and
Yeah,
things like that. And so you're saying you had some money set aside. So you wasn't really in bad shape, right? But it was still like emotionally, how did
yeah.
that affect you? And I can't imagine, like, you're probably the one that everyone's depending on to take care of the household, to make sure that everything goes the way it should go. How did that affect you emotionally?
It was really hard because, being in the man role in the relationship, everybody, in the dad, everybody thinks you have everything under control all the time, and nothing affects you. So you have to put on this facade that you're okay, everything's gonna be okay. Because if dad is in trouble and he's feeling emotions, the whole family's panicking. And when anybody else is having problems, they come to dad, and he kind of gives them advice and makes them feel better. But if dad's panicking, the whole house is panicking now. Nobody knows what to do. So I had to panic quietly and silently, and not let people know that I'm really worried about what's going to happen if this money finishes before the next thing comes along. And also at the same time, I had to figure out, how do I fix this? Even though I didn't make this mess, I'm the only one that can fix it for my household. So how do I fix that without panicking? So one of the things I did was, I would go to the gym, and I would get rid of all my stress, all that built up energy at the gym, so then I could deal with my family, and be calm for them, and not let them feel the worry and anxiety that I was feeling.
That's good. That's a good suggestion. Like, let all that stress out. But I can't imagine, because, like you said, you had to. It's kind of like that suffering in silence, because
Yeah.
you're right. Like, if dad's panicking and if you're our source in this household, then everybody starts to panic. So you couldn't show it, and you
Mhm.
had to keep that in the stress of, what if this money runs out? How did your social aspect change? Because I'm sure now there's less money coming in. You're having to change what you do, how you do it. How did everything socially affect your life?
So that was even bigger, just because I had this big status, like, out of my friend group. I was one of the most successful ones in the friend group, and now I have a job, and I've never been in that situation where I didn't have a job. And so you feel embarrassed, even though it wasn't my fault. You still feel like I let this happen. I let my family down. I let myself down. I let this happen because I let somebody else have too much control over my financial future. And so you're embarrassed. You don't want to socialize with people. Plus, you got to really count your pennies. You can't be spending too much money, because this money is, you don't know how long it's going to stretch for. And when it runs out, that's another tough situation. Because we had four kids, it was a little bit more expensive than a two kid family. Some of the kids were young, so they were in daycare as well. So we just had a lot of expenses that we were going to pile up pretty quickly. And so the social life just kind of went on pause. We just um, just dealing with our own little situation, and not really socializing too much until I got things turned around.
Right. And I can imagine, like you're saying, you were in your social group, you were up here, and you're like, I've always had a job, I've always had the money coming in. And now you're like, it isn't my fault, but still, I'm not where I used to be. And you didn't want to be around that circle or that environment. I can imagine. And then, having to cut back on expenses and things like that. So right there, all of that affected like your status of life.
Yeah.
Now, what did you do and how did you do? Not how did you do, but what did you do and how did you come out of it? Once you all went through this, I'm assuming, of course, you didn't allow someone to have power and control of your income anymore. So, what all did you do to come out of that mess?
So I started when I was learning about the law of attraction. There's like a spiritual side, and then there's a practical side. So I really resonated with the practical side of focusing your mind on the things that you want to do, and then finding ways to manifest that to make it happen. So I really started to work on, okay, what is it that I bring to the table as a manager and as a somebody that's employable that people are looking for. And what I realized was I was really good all through life at building relationships and making those connections. So I stayed connected to when the company went bankrupt, the bank that took it over. I was connected to that group, and they were trying to get a new buyer. And so there was four of us that ended up going to, basically, it was like a job interview. We went to this big boardroom meeting with the new investors, and they were seeing, okay, who can manage this? How can we get this thing started back up and turned around? And I realized I bring a lot of relationships and the relationship skills. And so that's the first thing I started to build on. And from that, I started to say to myself, okay, I can do this for my job, but I can also do this to help other people and start a side income, start a side career at the same time. Because I was learning about law of attraction, I was starting to learn, I was writing things down that were working. And that became a book that me and my mom, we put our first book out together, which showed all the things that worked with law of attraction. She spoke about the spiritual side, but I spoke about the practical side and how I was able to come out of that whole crash and start to really build up my income and build up my status to where I don't rely on someone else now. If something happens, I'm okay because I know exactly what I can do and the skills that I have to utilize to replace that income pretty quickly.
That's awesome. And most definitely the side career. I like how you said it was just a side job, it's a side career. But you had that, you took those connections that you had made already. And that's so important, the relationships that you build,
Yeah.
even while you're in one situation, can help when you're going into another situation. So if there's someone out there that's listening that may be going through a similar situation, what advice would you give to someone in the audience that's listening?
So I would say the two things that I really learned was one, when you're building money, you're not building money in case something bad happens. Because if you're focused on bad things happening, you're attracting it. So you build your money to have more than enough to do the things you want to do. But the important thing that I think really got me through that whole situation was understanding that worrying doesn't control it, like it doesn't affect anything. So the things that you control, you don't have to worry about. So focus on those things that you can build up your better skills. You can understand what assets you have, like building relationships, connecting to people. And then the things that you can't control, you don't need to worry about it, because even if you worry about it, it's not going to change anything. So by letting that go, it almost takes a big weight off your shoulders, because now I just need to look at what things I can do to turn things around. And if I follow that, it's like my GPS, and it's going to bring me to where I want to be, to the outcomes I want. And I always focus on the outcome I want. I don't worry about the other things, what could happen. I just want to know what's going to happen that's going to be a benefit for me. So I think if you really focus on the things that you want to have happen and just try to make those happen in different ways, you're going to be able to get through it. And it's not going to be overnight. It's going to take time, but you make those steps. You'll get there. It's like a journey, but it doesn't have to be as scary and as stressful as it feels. because it's temporary. Everything that happens is temporary. You know, you can be rich for a long time. That's even temporary. That doesn't mean you're going to be rich forever. You're never going to be broke forever. No one's ever broke forever unless you want to stay broke. So if everything's temporary, then it means you can get through this.
That is so true. Everything is temporary. But I like how you said that, unless you want to be broke forever, because
Yeah.
I'm just saying. But yeah, that is so true.
Yeah.
Everything is temporary. Oh my gosh, I'm resonating with that. So I know that you do have, you say you, wait a minute, I want to go back. You say you wrote a book with your mom?
Yeah, the very first book, that's how I got into writing. We wrote a book because I was writing about what was working with the law of attraction. So when my kids got old enough, I could share that stuff with them. But I didn't really think it was going to be a book. But then my mom one day told me she's going to write a book about law of attraction. And I said, well, I've been writing a bunch of stuff of what's been working and what's not been working for me with, the logical side of focusing on things. And when she read it, she's like, "Wow, this is like half the book. Let's just put the book do the book together." So that's really how I got started in writing.
Oh, that is awesome. What other books do you have that you'd like to share?
So my very first book was Your Invincible Power, and it's all about that kind of mindset. The latest book I have out right now is called Extra Time Actuality, and that's really about how I was able to achieve my personal impossible. So it's about how to manifest in the 3D world using your inner world, going inside and going within, and really connecting to the spiritual, creative part of life, and then how to use that to achieve your personal impossibles, like writing books, like speaking on stage, like doing all the things that I'm doing. And these are things that I probably shouldn't be able to do on paper, but I was able to do them anyways.
Right, forget the paper. I'm not saying don't get an education out there. I'm just saying sometimes your skills may not match what's on paper, but you still allow your skills to do what they can do. And if
Yeah.
someone wanted to connect with you, or I know you say you do coaching.
Yeah, so I have a website. It's called mindsetforsuccesstraining.com, and I do some coaching. I have like a lot of freebies on there. You get free downloads and some trainings, video trainings, and then I have my books are on Amazon. There's a link on there to Amazon. Also, a lot of people connect with me on Instagram, wt.hamilton on Instagram, and then there's links to my books there, and you can also get a lot of behind the scenes stuff I do and some of the silly, crazy stuff that I do as well.
Okay. Well, I will most definitely have all your information at the end. So make sure y'all watch all the way to the end. And I'll have his links and his website and all the information for his book so we can make sure that we support him in his journey. And so before we wrap up, are there any last words of encouragement that you'd like to leave with the audience?
Yeah, like I said, whenever you're going through something, just focus on the outcomes that you want and realize that you're more powerful than you realize. And it's just in when you focus on what you want, that's where your power comes. And when you have that confidence to be able to do the things that you want to do, that's very powerful. Sometimes it'll scare people. Like if you're working in a company and they see that you're a little bit too powerful, they get scared as well. But when you have that personal power, and that's what you should be developing in life, is that personal power. Because once you have that, you're able to do more things than you would imagine you would be able to do.
Yes, having that personal power. And of course, focusing on that law of attraction. What you think about is what's going to be attracted to you. And I want to just thank you. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your story and for sharing with the audience. And again, if there's anyone out there that's going through the same type of situation, like I know people lose jobs. I know sometimes companies close down. And especially, I'm just going to say this, especially preparing now for the future and what's to come in the next years, you want to position yourself so that you have control over your own finances and you have the power over your own income. Just like you were saying, I just wanted to piggyback on that because it is so important. And so take the classes, get some coaching, find a mentor that can help you with your mindset. And so thank you again, Mr. WT. Oh, I was about to say Hilton. Hamilton. I don't know where
Yeah.
Hilton came from, Hamilton.
Yeah. And I want to
For
thank you as well, Tracy, for what you do, because this is really important conversations. And I think you're really helping a lot of people by having a show like this.
Thank you. And I'm sure that someone out there that's listening is going to be impacted with your story and it's going to help them in what they're going through. And so, as we wrap up another episode of What's Your Mess, I want to leave you with this powerful quote to take with you throughout your day. If you want to be sad, keep thinking about the past. If you want to be anxious or worried, think about the future. But if you want to be happy, focus on the present day and be grateful for what you have. This is Tracey D. Armstrong with What's Your Mess? Have a good one, everyone.